Right, well, we're back after a very long Christmas break to talk about Chelsea Football Club, a game in which we've just beaten Luton Town. We're continuing our forward momentum as a Chelsea Football Club, but we're not particularly happy with that result, really, are we? We've let Luton Town come back into the game. They've had more possession, they've had more shots, they've had more XG. Every single one of those metrics shows that they should really have got a draw out of that game, and it looked completely different, didn't it? Like when we were looking at that game, 3-0 up, Cole Palmer gets his brace, everything's looking positive, everything is looking rosy. When I'm thinking about what I'm going to say to you guys in this video, I'm thinking it's going to be absolutely brilliant, but it didn't end up that way. And if you look at some of our recent games, like obviously we've just conceded 2 goals away to Luton, we conceded against Palace, we've conceded 2 against Wolves, 1 obviously against Newcastle. Sheffield United we didn't concede any against, but probably the weakest team in the league. Everton we conceded 2 against. Man United 2 against. Brighton 2 against. There's a clear and obvious thing here is that we can't really close up games, and our defence is probably the weakest area. And I think when you're looking at it, you could go, is the defensive unit the one that's the weakest point? And I think it definitely is. Like when you're looking at young defenders and the way they perform, you know, the age profile that we've got at the back there, it is incredibly young. You need Thiago Silva's leadership and his sort of like nous at the back, and he's bringing that, and he's bringing the sort of best performances that he can do really at his age. Like I don't think we can blame Thiago Silva at all, and so I wouldn't do that. Petrovic now looks like a really solid goalkeeper, and I think we do need to give him an immense amount of credit, even just for the game today, let alone all the other performances they've been doing. He had some unbelievable saves. First of all, he kept us absolutely in the game. I think it could have easily been a Luton win if we didn't have this guy in goal, so I'm chuffed to him. And also he looks very assured with his feet as well. I think his balls out, his sort of passing from the back was brilliant. Like he had a few balls where he sort of lifted it over the defenders, out to Cole, out to Gusto today. His forward passing was very good, and the key thing for me is what he doesn't do, what Sanchez does, is he puts those sort of balls straight into the middle to Caicedo and pings it at Caicedo or Enzo, for example, where they've made mistakes. And so I really like him. And just on Petrovic for 1 second, there's no way now that Sanchez can get back in that team. Like that's clear for me. Petrovic for me is the absolute out and out number 1, and we just need to acknowledge that. Like he's been absolutely brilliant, so credit to him. I think he's played so well. But going back onto the defenders, like, can we blame the unit itself? I think for me, I always look at the midfield unit as well. And I think the double pivot, while it should be really solid, it isn't. And it's really harsh, right? Because Caicedo and Gallagher look very good. They look very assured when they're on the ball. They look very mobile. But they seem to be sort of like opened up, and we seem to be so open in defence. And I was looking at it today. Luton had a very clear game plan, didn't they? Get the ball out wide, cross it into the box. And we made several errors, and we did this in the last game as well, where we weren't pressing the crosser aggressively enough. And you need to do that. In moments like this, in games like this, you need to just go for those crosses. Because if you don't, they're going to whip balls in, and it's going to be really dangerous. How many opportunities did they have today where they had it very close to our goal line, you know, within the 6-yard box, where they were tap-ins, and we were sort of looking for that for our own sort of play, and they were making it look very easy today. So we're not putting pressure in the wide areas quickly enough. And then also, like, when we're looking at our central defenders, like, they just look like they're all over the place. So I'm really interested to see what you guys think. Like, do you think it's a sort of a holistic defence issue? Do you think it's a wing-back issue? Or do you think it's the centre-backs? I want to see where your blame lies. For me, I'm looking at it holistically, and those boys are not knitting together well enough. Like, I don't think it's the goalkeeper's problem. I don't really think it's Thiago Silva's problem. I think Gusto played very well in the last couple of games, but again, maybe he needs to get out slightly closer. And then, you know, Caicedo and Gallagher, I really don't think you can call too much blame to them, but maybe it's sort of like the number 10 role, and then the wingers that need to support everyone, and we need to be holistically better. Now, talking about defensively and some of the issues that we've had, I tell you what wasn't an issue today was Noni Madueke. He was absolutely everywhere. And the reason why I mention him here in particular is because his defensive work rate is something that I've needed to see from our wingers for a very long time. This is why I'm absolutely furious about Raheem Sterling whenever he plays, because I don't think we get that defensive work rate and sort of desire that you get from a Madueke or even a Mudryk even. So I think that's an area that, you know, I'm really chuffed to see him play. And not only does he do that, he just has such an amazing performance, just in general. And look, the way that he took that goal was just absolutely brilliant. No backlift at all, top bins. I just don't even know where he got that finish from. I couldn't do that in a million years, even if I tried 100 times. Don't think I could do that finish. So Noni here And we must call this out now. He deserves to get a place in the starting 11 now. Poch has seen it. He's seen that he's got his work rate. He speaks so eloquently in the press. You can see that he really does care. I really hope these loan rumours just go away and we do see more of Noni, because he's been absolutely brilliant in the last couple of games. And look, I think you could go on and on about like other negativity around us at the moment, but I think that's kind of been summed up by my defensive point. Like, I don't really think the performance as a whole was that negative. Like, as I say, you know, up to the 75th minute, we were cruising. We looked absolutely fine. But it's just the sort of the pressure and the naivety. And I think beyond just sort of like the functioning of our defence, I think it's more like a mentality thing now, and a sort of a calmness and a confidence in our ability to play football. Like, you can't always rely on a manager to shout and bark orders from the sidelines. Sometimes that needs to just come from the pitch. And so I think that's the only other negative thing I should say that I'll mention in the rest of this video. Because, like, if we don't do that, better teams are just going to absolutely demolish us. So we need to be better at that straight away. And other than that, I think you just have to credit Luton. They've been a very, very good team this year. They've come up, they've had the lowest budget by an absolute mile, and they've come and tried to attack us at the end of the game and come back from a 3-0 down deficit. Like, they are absolutely brilliant. They've made Kenilworth Road an absolute fortress, and they've really challenged some very, very big teams. Not necessarily got the results they deserve, but come on, shown some absolute prowess. I think one player in particular that I have to call out for them more than anyone is Ross Barkley, a player that was maligned at Chelsea, was maligned at Everton, you know, had so many good moments for us. Under Sarri, looked absolutely brilliant, had to sort of leave Chelsea and go and find pastures new for the rest of his career, but he got his goal today. And you know, that just seems to be inevitable. Whenever we play some of our former players, they get a goal in. But I have to say, I'm very, very happy for Ross. It's so good to see him back in the Premier League and performing very well. And I have to say, big credit to Luton. What a performance they did. They don't deserve to go down, and for me, I'm rooting for them now. Like, I saw them win the playoff final. I think they really do deserve better than where they are, and I think there are other teams that are around them. Forest, Palace, I'm looking at, that could get dragged into that relegation fight, and I really hope Luton stay up. But beyond that, let's talk about some other positives, and the one that I want to get onto straight away here is Jackson. Nicholas Jackson is a player that I've sort of maligned. I'm not really sure if he's good enough. I've said it over and over again. What is his best position? Is he a winger? Is he a striker? Are we ever going to see the best out of him? Do we need a striker immediately? And now that question is one that I'll put a pin on, and I'll come back to that in a second. But let's just credit Nicholas Jackson for his performance today. I think he did so many things right. His assist for that Cole Palmer goal was absolutely brilliant. I think when he got the ball towards him, he held it up as well as he could. He was getting absolutely battered from the Luton defenders, which is what the Premier League is all about, and you know that's coming. He's had to come in and adapt to it. But again, I think if you're looking at the striker options that we have now, I'm looking at Broy's recent performances and I'm looking at Jackson's performances, and Jackson is better. And I do think he is acclimatising to the Premier League. Now, going back to that question now about whether we do need another striker, I still think, and I would love to see another reinforcement in that area. Just more to give Jackson a break, and also the ability to play as a potential winger. Like, that's what we were looking at in the market. We were looking in the transfer market going, do we need a wide player that could play a number 9? And yeah, Jackson can absolutely do that. So maybe we don't even need to reinforce in that area. But we still need to find an out-and-out world-class number 9 if we're going to get up to the Champions League places and challenge for a title, which is ultimately the goal for this season, you know, let alone next season. So we need to do that, and I do feel that Osman is the guy. We've just got to break the bank to do that, and there are some scary decisions that we're going to have to make, and the one that I want to particularly talk about right now is Conor Gallagher. Conor Gallagher is one of those players that might end up having to be sold, and we're hearing rumours today a €40 million bid that's come in from Tottenham, and Chelsea and Tottenham are in discussions. This is a mad one, isn't it? This is an absolute mad one, and I can feel the sort of ferocity and the passion of our fans questioning this and going, is this the right thing to do? And it is just a bit insane. When you look at the stats and his performances and that he's captain of the Chelsea Football Club at the moment, nothing adds up. But then you look at it and you go, from an accounting perspective, from a business perspective, bringing in £50 million if we can negotiate and get it up there, you can understand why the board are doing it. Now, that doesn't mean I understand it, doesn't mean that our fans will get it, doesn't mean that they won't be absolutely held to account, because they absolutely should be in terms of the board. But they can, you can see why the business plan, the business proposal is there. Because if we're going to break the bank for a player like Victor Osimhen, and we're going to need to pay £120 million to secure his services, we're going to need to make some sacrifices. And, you know, Trevor Chalobah and Ian Maatson, they're not enough. We're going to need to sell other players. So Sarr is another player that you're looking at. And then you're looking at, you know, players that are still at the club, Ziyech, Lukaku, Kepa, you know, that are still clinging on. They're still on loan elsewhere around the world. But, you know, that isn't necessarily going to be enough. And so you've always got to think about the sort of the FFP restrictions that we're under. And it's going to be such a divisive one. And if they do let him go, especially in January, it's going to be absolutely mental. It's going to be a crazy decision. And they're going to have to live with a lot of pressure from the Chelsea fans that are going to question every single one of those decisions. And I really do hope they do stick by that £50 million valuation, because if they go any lower, it will be a disgrace and it will be a really, really bad deal for us. Conor Gallagher was immense. He was immense today. I think we just have to give him credit, and I think we have to enjoy him for as long as we physically can. If they don't sort out this contract issue and he does go, it's going to be a real shame. And I think losing big academy players like that is not the one for me, and I really, really dislike it. But I just think it's inevitable now. I think that he's going to go, and that is a joke. But moving on from, again, a little bit of a sour note about how our club's being managed at the moment, one that we have to praise in terms of the recruitment and the management of the club is bringing in Cole Palmer. This guy, he's just playing absolutely brilliant at the moment, isn't he? He's absolutely everywhere, all over the pitch. That finish for the second goal that he did was just so cool. I thought he held on to it for too long, to be honest with you. And then you look at the expected goals, it's over 1 expected goals. You look at all the touches, his pass success rate is nearly 80% in a very attacking position. You know, he's playing always advanced balls. He's making things happen. So for that, you just got to commend him. I think what a signing he's been, and also for his age, he's really stepping up and performing at a very, very high level, a level to which I don't even think the recruitment team expected him to do. But we do really have to give this guy credit. And I have to say, there's a mentality thing. I was talking about mentality earlier on. It's a mentality thing with Cole, to sort of see him come in, demand the place and keep it. And he's been able to do that. And now you've got to look at our best starting 11. And Cole Palmer gets in there, doesn't he? He's one of the first names on the team sheet for me. And I think that's absolutely immense. So look, I think there are so many positives today. There are a lot of negatives, and I've tried to discuss them in this video. I'm really interested to see what you guys think. Like, do you think we can take some momentum from this performance and take it into the next games that we've got coming up? Now, we've got a massive break, and I think that's a really, really good thing until our next Premier League game. The next Premier League game isn't until January the 13th. So we can really take our time now to bring players that are on the edge, waiting to come back. I'm looking at Carney, I'm looking at Chilwell, waiting on the lines, you know, back on grass. They're going to be back fit very, very soon, and it's going to be brilliant to see those guys back playing for us. And hopefully when we get that squad and that unit back together, there'll be a bit more solidity and we won't be as open as we've been in this game. But yeah, I'm really interested to see what you think. How are you taking this performance today? Are you taking it as a good victory, as 3 points gained, you know, going back up the table, you know, doesn't necessarily matter about how it ended? Or are you looking at, you know, the way that it ended and then thinking about the momentum going forward and how we're going to end up for the rest of the season, with games where we've been torn apart really at the end of the game by teams like Luton, who are right down there in the bottom half of the league, you know, in the relegation places. And when we're going to face harder teams, how is that going to stand? Really interested to see what you guys think. If you enjoyed this video, please do subscribe to the channel and give it a like. It will mean the world to me if we do. We've got over 5,000 people subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely immense. I love it. Thank you so much. And if you do want to pick up a bargain, make sure you check out Aveste, the home of independent streetwear, my clothing brand. We've got some unbelievable stuff in the January sales that you are going to absolutely love. Let me know what you think. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for watching.